The 360 on Energy and Carbon, hosted by 360 Energy. On today's episode, we are joined by Adam Pesce. Adam is the president of Reunion Coffee Roasters, a Canadian family-owned specialty coffee roaster. He is on a mission to use coffee as a force for good in the world. Through his work, he has continued to foster long-standing partnerships with producers and farmers who share this commitment. With over a decade of experience in the specialty coffee industry, Adam is responsible for leading the company's sustainability programs and initiatives. He currently sits on the board of Grounds for Health, a nonprofit organization, and the Coffee Association of Canada. Reunion has a bullfrog-powered roasting facility in Oakville, Ontario, and a flagship cafe in Toronto. Learn more at www.reunioncoffeeroasters.com. Now let's get into the episode with Adam.
Great to be back.
And I'm looking forward to our episode 2 here, Adam, because the first one was a barn burner, or I should say a roasted. I can't go on. It was a roaster. We're going to be talking about advancing sustainability in the coffee industry, and it's my great pleasure to kick this baby off. So, you talked about the amount of time and effort that you guys have spent in this area. But from your experience, what are some of the key challenges and opportunities in actually promoting sustainability within the coffee industry, both domestically and also globally?
Oh, great question. I mean, the biggest challenge is just the lack of consistency through which we're all talking about it. So I think that consumers are quite confused as to what sustainability means in terms of their coffee. I think a part of that is that it is still relatively new. And another part of that is that it's a certain amount of greenwashing that a lot of roasters and coffee companies and every business are doing it, right? It's just a universal aspect of the sustainability piece these days is just this concern over greenwashing. And so I think that the claims can sometimes be dubious and dubious at worst and vague at best. There's a lot of different certifications. So you see, I think people are now trained to see a certification on a bag or like a seal on a bag and say like, oh, that one, that's going to be better. I don't know what it means, but it's going to be better than the one that doesn't have a seal on it. And sometimes if you look really carefully, those are made up seals that companies will have that don't have any actual bearing in the world. Some of them are very legitimate. Others, again, make some more dubious claims, I would say. But yeah, there's still just a fundamental lack of understanding. I hear it all the time. People find out I'm in coffee and they say, oh, do you do that free trade coffee? It's like, well, I think you're talking about fair trade. Free trade coffee is not really a thing. You would not believe how often I hear that. And then people, and then I'll have people say, oh, I only drink fair trade coffee. And every time someone comes or you can kind of hear that happening in like a coffee shop or something. And I just want to ask them, like, explain fair trade to me very quickly. And nobody really knows what people inherently know that it means that it's better for the farmer, but no one actually knows the back end machinations of how that certification works. And I actually think that that's fine as long as you're not being a jerk about it. It's fine to not know how it works. It's fine. If I was the consumer of that, I would just want to know how fair trade works a little bit more so that when I'm making my buying decisions, I'm just cool. If I see that logo, I know that there's a lot of trust behind that logo. That's how I feel about fair trade when I see it on anything else. I know what goes into it and there's no playing. It's real what it takes to be certified, stay certified, what you're saying by doing it. So, I trust it a lot as someone who's got a lot of experience with it. I just, most consumers don't. So it's very difficult for consumers to figure out what's real and what isn't. And we're still in the early days of all of this. And so, a big term that was bandied about in the coffee industry for a while was direct trade. That was a really dangerous one because there is no certification for it. It's just something that, a few roasters started saying, and then everybody jumped on a bandwagon. And, most of those claims are seriously dubious, I would say. I think that there's players in every industry that have not done those of us who actually are doing the work any service in making these kind of weak claims to their level of sustainability that they're participating in. And that's caused a lot of confusion for consumers. And then that confusion turns into mistrust, and then they just assume that it's all nonsense. It's a very dangerous way to be.
So what I'm hearing, those challenges, you've got to turn those into opportunities by educating people on what is real, right?
Yeah.
And I know that's, again, that's a cost and that's time, but
it is.
Yeah,
it is. And we talk about that all the time. It's like, you can't, if someone doesn't want to learn more about it, we can't force it down their throat.
You can't force it.
We can't hit them over the head with it. So our approach often is make the claims true, the true claims, the real claims, put them on the bag, like keep the language as simple as possible around it. You know, one of the most successful programs that we've had has been a tree planting program. We did it with Trees for the Future, great organization that we've worked with since 2011. And the program worked so well because at the time when we started it, it was buy this blend of coffee and we will plant 2 trees for every pound. And so we've planted over 1.1 million trees with that through purchases of that coffee since 2011. But it worked so well because it was so easy to understand, right? Buy this coffee, trees get planted. Everybody knows what that looks like. We also do a project with another one of our coffees with an organization based out of Vermont called Native Energy, and they work with farmers they work all over the world, not necessarily with farmers actually, but in the case of the project we've supported with them, it's a water project in Honduras. So they provide biosand filters for farmers in a region of Honduras where it's hard to access clean water. Like, how do I put that on the label? You know what I mean? Like, it's really like that's much harder to explain. We've tried to distill it into this coffee provides clean water for coffee farmers, but a little less clear. So that's always a big challenge, is making very clear claims. I think it's why. So the certifications, fair trade in particular, been around, and Rainforest, they've been around for a long time, and they were very popular with a small subset of consumers. Then I would say they kind of hit a bit of a fallow period for a while, and in recent years have become much more popular. And I think it's because of the trust, and it's because they're verified, and it's because there's no question about the claim, because there's so much work, full teams in these organizations working behind the scenes to make sure that they're doing what they're saying they're doing. And so it's very easy to trust that. And the companies that are making their own kinds of claims have gotten in some trouble as of late with their sustainability claims, saying, look at how sustainable we are, and then getting sued over it. So it's a lot easier and safer, actually, probably for a lot of businesses to kind of go where the most verification is.
Well, on that note, as a coffee lover, I'm quite familiar with some catchwords at cafes and grocers of certifications like organic, fair trade, direct trade, and Rainforest Alliance. Could you outline the main differences in relation to sustainability and ethical coffee production?
Sure, yeah. So organic's probably the easiest one. Most people kind of conceptually understand what organic means. To be certified organic, a farm has to grow without use of chemicals, pesticides, herbicides, petroleum-based fertilizers, etc., for a minimum of 3 years, and then go through a verification process with a certifier to make sure that basically the soil is clean. So from a sustainability standpoint, that's all about soil remediation, just keeping chemicals out of the environment. I'll jump to fair trade, because fair trade's got a bit of a narrower focus, though they do have a lot of other components to the certification. But fair trade, I would say, is more on the financial aspect of it, the economic aspect of sustainability. So in coffee, fair trade only comes from co-op farms, so not like large estate kind of farms, single owner farms. It only comes from co-op. So there's great shared resources, obviously, in a co-op. It supports small farmers in a much healthier way than just selling coffee to a local collector. They get way more of the value chain. And then through the fair trade certification, they're guaranteed a minimum price. So virtually all coffee is traded on a commodity market. It's a commodity. Their coffee commodity market plays in almost all coffee pricing, at the very least as a part of the pricing mechanism. And in most cases, it's just built into the economic system of coffee. So when the coffee market gets too low, right now the minimum price is $1.80. Interestingly, the coffee commodity price today is right around that minimum. So if the coffee commodity price is $1.90, then as fair trade, I guess, believes, at that $1.90 plus the quality premium that farmers are going to get paid, that's somewhere closer to that's a reasonably fair price to be paying for that coffee. When the market dips below 180 and has 7-8 months ago was down at 140, 145, 150, that has nothing to do with the farmer. The commodity market of coffee is completely disassociated with the cost of growing coffee. And so fair trade makes sure that they are tethered together. And so the cost of what it takes to produce a pound of coffee is built into what we as roasters and you as consumers are paying for that coffee. So the farmer is getting a much better share of the value chain of that coffee, and they're getting paid a literal fair price for the coffee. And that's all done through price premiums. We pay an extra licensing fee to, in our case, Fair Trade Canada, that also, the money goes to running the organization, but also supporting those co-ops through social programs as well. Rainforest Alliance is a great organization. It's a very holistic approach. So they tackle all three kind of main pillars of sustainability: social, economic, and environmental. I would say that they're stronger on the social and environmental than on the economic, but they just have a strong set of standards across all components of basically running the farm as a business that requires the farmers to look at the whole process with an eye towards traceability and sustainability, better living conditions for the farmers, minimum wage for their farmers, like work standards, I think is a very important thing. Farms that don't have any kind of work standards on them are the ones that have the most exploitation on them. Obviously, it's where, you still see it. It happens in the world. There is child labor on farms. There is, indentured servitude happening in the coffee world. There is all kinds of labor issues that happen on farms. And so Rainforest Alliance certified and fair trade certified farms both kind of prevent that from happening as part of what it takes to maintain that certification. The direct trade, I touched on that a couple minutes ago. I would say that is the one that I think is least used, particularly these days, because it's so fluid what it means to every different roaster. So to me, direct trade really means like you're going to visit that farm on a regular basis, annually, biannually, or every other year at the minimum. You're working with that farmer and you're talking with that farmer not just about what do you need me, what am I going to pay you for this coffee? It's what do you need to make from selling me this coffee so you can survive. It's a great model. It's just extremely difficult to maintain if you're doing it the real way. There's a handful of companies that do a fantastic job of it. Intelligentsia, based out of Chicago, Counterculture, based out of North Carolina, that do there are companies that do an excellent job of it. Most of the really small roasters that you'll see are unfortunately not doing a really great job of it. They're not visiting the farm, certainly not regularly, and they're taking a claim that maybe an importer's using and co-opting it for their own. So I would, asking those questions, of a roaster who's making a direct trade claim, I think is, it's quite important. It's like we have to challenge people to define that better. Does that mean that they're actually making more money? Are you paying them more than they would pay on the open market? Or are they, there's often this villainization of kind of middlemen, whether that be exporters, importers, the freight companies, the certifiers. They're all adding value, some better than others. And that's for all of us to determine and choose who we do business with. But those actors in the middle that everybody seems so keen to get rid of add a lot of value, getting the coffee out of a country smoothly, getting it into a country smoothly. Those are challenging tasks. I've tried to do it myself. It doesn't work. It's how you lose a lot of money real fast is you try and be your own importer. And so we count on experts to do it, and they add value, and we challenge them on the value that they add. And it creates a level of security for us too, to know that there's very smart people working on this important part of our supply chain. But yeah, I would say that direct trade's the certification that can have tremendous value, but most of the time doesn't for a consumer. I like, and to that end, unless you've really done your research on a company that's making that claim, I would often kind of suggest people avoid it.
Okay, I want to sort of revisit something we talked about in the first episode, and we were talking about, developing a sustainable business and how there are costs involved. And some of those costs will save you money, some won't. And I was just wondering, do you have a sort of formalised process to make judgments on how you do things? And, should we invest in that? It's sustainable and it'd be good for the profit. Or we're going to invest in that. It won't necessarily make profit, but it's good for us. And I sort of put in brackets with that. I do appreciate that you are a small family business, which has a lot more perhaps fluidity in how you make decisions than perhaps a larger corporation. But so that distilling that down, making an espresso out of it rather than a latte, do you have a process for assessing the possible costs of sustainability interventions?
No, is the short answer. But we do have there is a process. It's not I would say it's not an exceptionally formal process. Because we are a family business, but we do have a team. I have a team of people that we trust: finance, operations, production, sales, marketing. We have a group, and we talk about these things. Early days, I was making a lot of decisions kind of autonomously, and So my father, when he started the business, there was not a ton of sustainability. It was 95. That wasn't really going on, but he was doing good things. He was one of the first to commit to buying fair trade coffee in Canada. He had direct trade relationships, particularly one farmer that we still are very friendly with in Nicaragua, who reached out to him one day. I think it was through a telegram. Like, this is how far back we're going here. And, asked him for some money to help finance a daycare on a farm or in the community where the farm was. And, my dad sent him some money, and so we joke, like, he was very passively progressive back in the day. And it was all kind of ad hoc. It was, we throw some money at this, or, oh, sure, we'll buy that coffee and we'll help this guy out, or we'll help her out with these different things. And when I came and joined the business, I would say I was more actively progressive and wanting to create a system of sustainability within the business and make those changes. So I think that definitely, played a factor for us. And the way that we were making decisions early days was often still very, and can still be today, very ad hoc. We're looking at, the sourcing and that's all very prescriptive, because we've made our bed on our sourcing program, and we stick to it, and we don't allow any deviation from it, or not without substantial conversation amongst the team. But because of our size as a business and the nature of the ownership structure, we can make the decisions that we want to make. And we go through a financial process to make sure that it's not ruinous, and it's, we're going to be able to continue to be profitable, because after all, we are a for-profit business. But it's not running through a team of consultants and, a boardroom full of people whenever we need to make those decisions. We've got a great group. We've got an amazing team that I have a lot of trust with. And so it's mostly conversations, and then financial analysis and a business analysis. How is this going to be for our marketing? So it's a handful of conversations like that, rather than no one's putting together large proposals for sustainability initiatives. It's just not required.
It probably makes it more doable, doesn't it? Because we so often see in large corporations, the processes that people have to go through often deter them from, shall we say, innovating in this area.
Yeah, it's, they've got fiduciary responsibilities to shareholders to be considering, and all kinds of other things. And they've got, bigger businesses or bigger things to factor into their business. And so, for the time being, we don't have to worry about that. So I'm not going to worry about it. And we're just going to make the best decisions for the business. And that's part of being a business owner is just like, you got to take those risks. It can't all be calculated. You have to sometimes take a chance on something, and sometimes it pans out, sometimes it doesn't. That's just the way the cookie crumbles.
Yeah.
Okay. So Adam, a question I'm going to ask you, partially answered in the first piece, just so you know. But what we find is sometimes people listen to both. Okay, so Adam, so my question is, can you share with our audience sort of the innovative initiatives or particular projects that Reunion Coffee Roasters has undertaken to further your sustainability goals and reduce your carbon footprint?
Well, I would say that the main initiative that we've undertaken has been our B Corp certification. So I could get into a lot of small initiatives that we've taken on, but they're small and they, take a lot of time to go through them all. And I think that, it's something that I preach a lot is like the small things matter. You don't have to just, there's these big, the big, hairy, audacious goals that you have for your business. Those are great. You have to have those. But if that's all you're thinking about, if you're looking at everything from 10,000 feet, there's often some things right in front of you that you can be doing that's just going to make positive impact, to have a positive impact in the world. So, the tackling the big things right off the hop was our sourcing. So, obviously coffee is our main cost of goods. It's all in coffee. It's a huge component of what we spend. So it was obvious, okay, like if we don't deal with the supply chain on our coffee, then we can do all of the other little things, and none of it's going to matter if we're not tackling the biggest driver of impact that we have. So this is the sourcing program, and maintaining and improving that over the years is just an ongoing. It's not a project. That's part of our business, but it's a huge component of what we do. The commitment to renewable energy was another one. So making that commitment to bullfrog power in 2008, I think it was. So again, it was another big chunk. It was like, okay, energy consumption. All right, how are we going to tackle that? Well, there's one, very clean and easy and fast way we can do that, which was committing to bullfrog power. And then since then, it's been a series of small things. I would say that, right now we're doing a lot of work on our packaging material, trying to improve that, because that's probably the next biggest challenge that we have. Is coffee packaging is just a brutal toll that it takes on the environment. I mean, we don't pack K-cups, but obviously, K-cups being the one that takes the most heat within our industry, but just most coffee comes in metallized plastic material, and which is unrecyclable. So we're working with vendors on different things: reduced plastic, actually recyclable material, compostable materials. We did in 2013, after years of working with a supplier, develop a compostable packaging material that we use for our version of a single serve coffee. So we don't produce K-cups, we produce something called the soft pod. So it looks a lot like a round tea bag, but it's filled with coffee. It goes into a specific type of brewer that you would often find in, say, a hotel room or in an office. It's not really a residential single coffee or single cup solution at this point, but it's something that we take a lot of pride in, is that we developed this compostable packaging material that works great with one of our vendors over the years. We've worked through a lot of problems with that. That was a lot of R&D. This one didn't, oxygen is coffee's enemy. So it needs to have a good oxygen barrier, good moisture barrier. It needs to be able to keep the coffee fresh. So we had issues with that. We had issues where, it was using a PLA based liner. So there was, early days versions where the coffee started tasting like vegetables because that was kind of leaching into the bag of the coffee. It was like, we went through all of the different nightmares, developed that material. And since 2013, have been producing these compostable pods that are just a sustainable alternative to Keurig, to Nespresso, to Flavia, to any of those other solutions. The pod itself is paper, abaca paper, and ground coffee. So that goes right in the compost. The material that wraps around it is compostable, and the carton that comes in is obviously recyclable. So it's a zero waste single cup coffee solution. And I would say that's one that we've, it's kind of it's a lot of that is behind the scenes coffee. That's not the coffee that you're going to be, drinking at home every day, but you might be drinking it at your office every day. But that's something we take a lot of pride in. We produce tens of millions of those pods every year. And that's tens of millions of cups of coffee that aren't creating plastic waste. So that was a big point of pride, and it's it's been a slow adoption process throughout the industry, but we're seeing a lot of success with that now because there is just such a recoil from plastic waste happening now in the market, just generally, whether it be in coffee or any other food industry. We're obviously here in Canada, our government's doing what they can to get us away from plastic waste in food, and I think that's a positive development, and I think we need to take that further. This goes back to we were doing that in 2013. No one was asking for it. No one was demanding it of us. No one was regulating that for us. That was just a decision that we made to commit to the environment at that point in time. And 10 years later, 10 expensive years later, it's paying dividends now, but it's a long slog to get there.
Thank you for that. I think it's a nice question, whether the answer's easy or not. And it's really looking ahead. What are your hopes for the future of sustainability in the coffee industry? Can I just tag a bit onto that? Because everything we've really talked about has been from farm to roasting to packing. We haven't really touched on the retail Starbucks, that end of it. I just wonder what your views are on the sustainability of the cup of coffee that we drink.
So interestingly, if you look at the carbon footprint of a cup of coffee, we think of everything before you take that cup of coffee into your hand.
Yeah.
We don't often think of the downstream impacts, the waste of everything that we do. And we don't often I guess maybe I'll ask the question. If you had to guess, do you have a thought of the sort of what would be the single largest contributor to the carbon footprint? Which part of the process would be the largest contributor to the carbon footprint of a cup of coffee?
Oh,
all the way through the supply chain, from the farm to the waste at the end of you drink out of a paper cup or you've had a K cup or whatever. From that, where would the biggest impactor be?
What a question. Chances are going to get it wrong. What are you saying,
I would
Dave?
say water consumption somewhat throughout the whole process.
Closer.
Distribution?
Yeah. No, it's actually, if for a milk-based drink, if you're drinking a latte, then yeah, absolutely. The water consumption's a brutal component of it. The biggest single, I believe it's at the cafe level, the heating up water, the energy required to heat up water is a massive component to the carbon footprint of a cup of coffee. Because you're doing, you do so much stuff in bulk, shipping coffee around the world, happening on massive container ships, right? You're not flying coffee. It's happening on massive container ships that, while ugly and unseemly, are relatively efficient. They move a lot of product around very, very, very quickly, all things considered. But we don't often think of that. So again, it's about the small things. It's about, roasters or people at the cafe level utilizing, high efficiency equipment, low energy equipment. It's about to heat up their water. It's, there's a lot of fuss made over the last few years about plastic straws. That whole issue that came up. Paper cups are, they're not getting stuck in turtles' noses, but paper cups and lids and that level of waste from a coffee is just totally unnecessary and pretty brutal. So there's a lot of the little things through the supply chain that create quite a large impact. So yeah, I guess where the future is for it all, the future state of it. I mean, we need to get to a point where all coffee can have some sort of validation in the growing, verification in how it was grown, and we're getting there. There's lots of sort of newer school versions of these certifications that aren't Rainforest aligned, but there are ways that more coffee is being verified in terms of sustainability work that's going on the farms beyond just those main certifications. That's great. Obviously more efficient shipping, roasting, offset your consumption. We're working right now on becoming a zero carbon company. That's a goal for us, where I don't have a claim that I can make today. I don't love it when I see these companies, there's large corporations that are we're going to be carbon neutral by 2050. It's I think I think we might be past the Rubicon at that point, guys. It's not going to do us a hell of a lot of good if you're going to take the next 26 years to get us to carbon neutral. So we're trying to work through that right now and really tracking our greenhouse gas emissions through all 3 scopes. We've done 1 and 2, 3 is the hard one, and offsetting that. Same thing at the cafe level. We bullfrog power our cafe as well. We've gone to that level. We try and, it's for us, it's, trying to limit the amount of paper cups that are being sold. Alternative milks, some are better than others. There's a whole lot to think about. That's a lot to keep in your head, like you don't want to be ordering, if you can avoid it, don't order almond milk. Oat milk is going to be one of the more efficient milks that you can switch to, which is why you're seeing that happening at more and more cafes. Or flaxseed milk. There's many more efficient milks than there are certainly dairy is. So yeah, there's a lot to consider in what makes a cup of coffee more sustainable. And certainly it's nice now that we're seeing more of it. We're seeing more members of the supply chain get involved and making these decisions to improve their corner, right? We all need to improve our bits. And so I think we've taken a leadership role in that in terms from the roasting side, from the specialty roasting side. We're trying to drive change. Being a sustainable solution for a cafe or a restaurant is great, but there are also work that everybody needs to do individually to kind of deal with their component of the industry. Because the most sustainably sourced and roasted coffee could still end up being put into a K cup and then being put into a paper cup, and creating a lot of waste downstream, and then effectively taking away from all of the work that was done earlier in the supply chain. So it's not an easy question what the future looks like.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks for another great episode, Adam. To end off this episode, what is the biggest takeaway for our listeners? And I'll throw this out to all 3 of you, whoever wants to take it first.
So clearly, Adam and his organization are really doing a lot of work, and he's doing a lot of heavy lifting and doing things that hasn't been thought of, or there's no blueprint or process or procedures that are well defined. So it seems to me that's work that needs to be done to help people like Adam reduce the time and effort to help his team. If there is some form of education and process that people could follow, similar to the standardization or certifications that he's saying, I think that would go a long way. And I actually, Adam, I think there's, after this, I'll share with you with a gentleman that we work with, Bob Willard, that you may or may not know, that has written processes and procedures for businesses like yours to undertake. So I think that will go a long way. John, you'll appreciate this. Adam did not talk once about he needed an incentive from the government to do something. And I have to tell you, Adam, again, because John and I have been in this for a while, when we're talking about energy, most people think they need to have incentives to motivate them to do something. When actually you go, no, it's just the right thing to do, and I'm just going to take it on. Mm-hmm. So it's refreshing, by the way. And the other thing is, I'm going to say to all the boomers, look out, because the next generation is going to move on this. And actually, they're probably going to push you out of your chair. Mm-hmm. They're probably going to get pushed out. So you can adapt and move, or you will be moved. Be very clear. You will be moved. And so I really have enjoyed this conversation. I know it has not been easy for you, and you've taken it on. Our job and others is try to help inform people that are in the industry like you. So letting them know that this can be done, and you're doing it. And again, we applaud you. And I'm hoping as things mature that things will be a little easier and smoother for you to help make this more process cost effective and, quite frankly, demonstrate a financial payback as well. So that's what I captured from this discussion.
Thanks, David. I mean, for me, it's about that constant. It's the constant moving forward that we have to do. It's like we've got getting to where we are with our certifications and our supply chain. Like, we feel good, but it's definitely not job done.
No, it's never done.
And it's never done, which is a challenge to recognize that there's always more work to be done, and we just have to keep pushing by virtue of us pushing, hopefully push others as well. like there's a lot of great work being done by a lot of great companies. It's certainly not just us who are doing this kind of work. And so, we're trying to band us all together to drive real change in the industry is a bit, it's not why we choose to do it, but it is a big benefit is that, we're all pushing each other as an industry, like the specialty coffee industry in particular is just everyone's pushing each other up to, we gotta do more. And I see something someone else is doing and think like, oh, that's great. We should definitely just do that. Like there can't be pride of authorship when it comes to making a more sustainable world. It's just gotta be like the best idea wins. And if you want to copy me, like come on board. I'll tell you exactly how to do it.
John, what's your biggest takeaway?
Yeah. I'm going to conflate a number of things together on this. And I thought it was very interesting, your comment about the BHAGs and small things matter. And I think sometimes, big goals are sexy. Small changes are difficult. Then the other thing you talked about was the biggest impact being heating the water in the coffee shop.
Mm-hmm.
So taking that all together, I think I should be switching to just having espresso.
No, that's a lot of heat. Think about how big of a tank someone's got on an espresso machine, and they're keeping that hot water hot all day long. Go to find a very efficient espresso machine, and there are no perfect solutions. It's not it's not a silver bullet. There is not one way to do this properly. It is you have to pick your battles because you can't just invest in everything all at once. Unless you're building up from brand new, which like sometimes I see that with other roasters or, they're building a brand new facility or a new cafe, building up brand new. And it's like, you get to buy all the fun new toys that are amazing. And so like, it's also a challenge for older businesses, established businesses. It's like, we don't get that. Maybe, once every 30 years, you get to do a big move or do something, you got to max out your building, you got to max out your equipment before you can make those big changes. So we have to figure out how to evolve. It's not just like, okay, well, I'm just going to buy all brand new spanking beautiful, energy efficient everything and this, that, and the other thing. It's got to be done over time and very methodically because it's expensive. And
I'm going to pick you up on one thing.
There's a cost not to do it too.
Yeah. You mentioned silver bullet. We had a guy, Phil DeLuna, on some time back, and he had a great comment, and it was, there isn't a silver bullet, but there is silver buckshot.
I like that. That's my biggest takeaway. Now that's my biggest takeaway, silver buckshot.
It was ours when he was on as well.
Yeah. It was a great one.
My biggest takeaway is nothing is simple with the transition to a sustainable future. Even things like your morning coffee has factors that will need to change. And this episode was a great reminder for myself of the conscious choices we need to make daily as consumers. So thanks for that, Adam. And on that note, where can we find Reunion Coffee?
I think that probably the easiest place is just going to our website, reunioncoffeeroasters.com. We have an online store there. We've got our flagship cafe in Toronto on Roncesvalles Avenue. And then it's the reality of the way our business has been built is you've probably had our coffee. You might just not know it because it's we're packing a lot of private label. It's it's a big piece of how we've grown and being a sustainable partner for a lot of brands that you might know and love that I can't mention specifically necessarily. But yeah, I'm sure if you've had a cup of coffee in Toronto, you've probably had a cup of our coffee.
Wow.
Thanks, Adam, for a great episode.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Adam.
Appreciate your time.
Appreciate it, Adam.
That's all for today's episode of the 360 on Energy and Carbon podcast. Thanks for listening. Make sure to check us out on our website at 360energy.net and follow us on LinkedIn at 360 Energy Inc. Tune in to our podcast on Apple Music, Spotify, Anchor, or other listening platforms by searching the 360 on Energy and Carbon. You can watch the video recording and subscribe on YouTube at 360 Energy Inc. Email us your feedback at podcast@360energy.net or comment on our LinkedIn posts. See you next week.